Okay, then, just finished reading The Little Book That Builds Wealth by Pat Dorsey, who is head of research at Morningstar. And the whole book really is built on the premise of a coin that Warren Buffett has termed, which is the economic moat. And the economic moat refers to a sustainable advantage that protects a company against competitors, the way that a moat protects a capital. The wider and deeper the moat, the more protected the castle is, and the higher returns you can expect on capital throughout the life of the castle. Basically, the point is that you can hold these stocks for longer because you want to. And Warren Buffett, he says that he invests in a company as though the stock market will close for 5 years tomorrow. So these economic moats are not necessarily built on companies that have been around for 20, 50, 100 years, but they're built on a very core set of principles that means that if you invest in these companies, you should expect a high rate of return on your capital for a number of years to come. So it's about taking that long-term value perspective. So the larger the discount to fair value and the larger the moat, the higher the Morningstar rating. It talks about how some companies can withstand the relentless onslaught of competition for long periods of times, and these are the wealth compounding machines that form the bedrock of your portfolio. Companies with moats are more valuable than companies without moats. And he says, Pat Dorsey goes on to say that in the stock market, mules and Shetland ponies race against thoroughbreds, and the best jockey in the world can't do much if his mount is only weeks from being put out to pasture. So what he says is that as an investor, your job is to focus on the quality of the horses, not the jockeys. They're quite disparaging, or just don't buy into the whole leadership management impact on a business. It's much more important to understand the structural dynamics of the industry that a company is in, and then its size relative to its rivals. So Warren Buffett again has said that a management with a reputation for brilliance often comes unstuck when it takes on a company that's a laggard in its industry, or that comes from an industry with poor economics. It's the industry with poor economics that normally shows through. So the four sources of wide, deep moats, the four sources of structural competitive advantage that are laid out in this book for us are intangible assets, customer switching costs, the network effect, and cost advantages. So if we look first at intangible assets, well, this is brands, patents, and regulatory licenses. So any company with an advantage such as a brand or a patent has the advantage to extract a lot of value from its customers. If a company can charge more for the same products than its peers can just because of its brand value, but then it has a formidable economic moat, especially if it has the power to increase that price over time. Pat Dorsey talks about how patent lawyers drive nice cars because the more profitable a patent is, the more lawyers will be trying to come up with ways to attack it. So a patent can be a very strong source of competitive advantage, and it can constitute a lot towards that wide, deep moat that you want to build around your castle. The second one, which is switching costs, he says that sticky customers aren't messy, they're golden. And in a world where technology is changing all the time, you want to be able to lock your customer in. You want the product to become habitual. You want them to think about it, to use it, and it to become for them to depend on your product in their daily life. This goes on well to the network effect, which really is built into switching costs. And it says that it's so powerful that it gets a chapter all to itself. And the point is that businesses that benefit from the network effect are similar, is that the value of their product or service increases with the number of users. So a great example of this is eBay. So eBay is a marketplace, or now Amazon, which is a marketplace. The more people that use it, the better the platform becomes. Another great example of 21st century business is Facebook. The more people that are on Facebook, the more of your friends that are there, the harder it is for you to then leave it and go on to another platform, because it would take so long for that other platform to build up all of the different networks within it to compete with a Facebook. Finally, the fourth competitive advantage is cost advantages. So it's the opposite to price. It's where companies are able to have sustainable lower costs than the competition, which allows them to pass that price on to the customer. So in British retail, you can look at Primark, which is a good example of this. They have a very low cost structure, which allows them to position themselves as the cheapest within the industry and to consolidate that lower end of the industry. A few big notes to finish up on. He says that the absolute size of a company matters much less than its rivals. So companies with niche market moats can generate fabulous returns on capital whilst making pretty mundane products, because if they're the dominant party in a relatively small industry, they can still be a fantastic investment because they can build a very wide and deep economic moat around their business. And remember, the point to that is that over time, companies with wide economic moats are going to generate very high returns on capital. And return on capital is, according to this book, the best benchmark of a company's profitability. Fantastic book, really worth reading for anyone who's starting out or in their business career.